And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Speaking about Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, the song that I led into this segment is by another Hamiltonian, David Wilcox, called Bad Apple. If you'd like to check out the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And we're coming to you around the world tonight on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and iHeartRadio. My guest this hour is Chris Cogswell. He received his PhD in chemical engineering, focusing on the study of nanomaterials for use as catalysts and adsorbents from Northeastern University. He has a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and philosophy from the University of New Hampshire. He hosts a podcast on the history of philosophy of science and fringe science, and is interested in how technologies and science are actually accepted by societies. Chris hopes to bring a seriousness and a strong research focus to this field, as well as look at the many questions posed by these phenomena from angles previously not focused on by UFO research communities. He currently resides in St. Paul, Minnesota with his wife, and the website to check Chris out and to listen to his podcast is themadscientistpodcast.com. And Chris Cogswell, welcome to the X Zone.
Thanks very much for having me.
Tell me, from chemical engineering to the paranormal, what happened? How'd that happen?
Well, I blame it all on a freshman philosophy class I took on existentialism, actually. So I had when I got into university, I was part of a kind of like a honors college sort of thing. And so, they made us take a course that was outside of our major once every semester. And so the first semester I took this course on existentialism. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I always knew that I enjoyed philosophy, and I always, the part of science that always interested me was the philosophy kind of stuff of science. And anyways, from there, it just kind of, a lifelong passion of the paranormal and the kind of the fringe, and in UFOs in particular, and it all came together when I was able to start really looking at this stuff through the lens of the philosophy of science. And so for me, chemical engineering is almost kind of my side thing. It's my main job, but definitely my passion is in this realm. So
what is your take on ufology? Why is ufology today so screwed up?
So I think that there is a lot of good out there still, even though I think that a lot of the big view that we get of it is kind of these very hard fringe, very outside the realm of what I guess I would even consider to be, let's say, standard UFO research. I think that in many ways there are good things in terms of, say, public perception, public acceptance, and also just kind of the scientific community's acceptance. But in terms of what makes the UFO field, I think, so challenging at this point, but also so exciting, is that there's so much interest, there is so much time being spent on these subjects, but there is no gatekeeper. There is no kind of centralized place or no area of peer review or, critique that I would think is important in any field. And so because there hasn't been this critique, we've had, basically hundreds of people, hundreds of books published each year, countless radio shows and podcasts and TV shows and whatever. And everyone's interested in this stuff, but we're all giving our own pet theories. What we really need to do is start amassing this information and really looking at it with going through it with a fine-toothed comb with an eye towards, serious, just logic, science, philosophy, right? All of these academic disciplines that have existed and I think have a lot to do with the UFO field. And we need to be able to kind of put these ideas in the right place, put away ideas that aren't necessarily going to move us forward, and also be able to come out and say with some backbone, I don't believe that idea is true. I think a big problem is we want to be open to everything, But, if everything is evidence of alien contact, or if everything is a UFO, then, nothing is, right? You lose all the power of your evidence.
I've been doing the show for 28 years, and over the 28 years, I've had over 5,000 guests on. And a fair number of these guests are UFO enthusiasts. And over the 28 years, I have not seen any change. Absolutely no change. And you would think with the advent of the modern technology that we have today, somebody would have caught the smoking gun by now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I think is actually quite fascinating is that even though we've had this technology, really, it hasn't become widely available to the public, I would say, until the last, say, 10 years. Right. And on top of that, there is always a lag between when technology makes its way from, or let me rephrase this.
Sure.
I think that science generally, we see this issue where the old guard kind of has a set way of thinking about things, a set way of doing things. And so even with the very exciting things that are going on with, young researchers in the lab finding new things, it might still take 20 years, 30 years before these young researchers' ideas are taken seriously. I think in many ways, the same thing is true. I mean, the same thing is true in any field, right? So I think with the UFO field in particular, we have been working with a set of tools that are frankly outdated, right? And so what I hope to do is bring in these newer tools, bring in excited scientists and excited researchers to finally put some of this new technology to good use, right? I mean, a perfect example of this, I would say, is the statistical analysis of UFO cases, right? So MUFON collects thousands of UFO sighting cases a year.
Yep.
And all of that data gets put into a larger database, but it's never really been probed for very high quality statistical analysis, right? So answering some basic questions that we hear about all the time, UFOs appear near water. UFOs like hotspots. They like to be around mountains or, nuclear facilities or whatever, right? Everyone seems to have their own favorite thing about where UFOs appear. All of that stuff is a question of data. It's not necessarily a question of opinion or anything else like that. So that's kind of where we're hoping to do, is start with laser focus, really looking at these questions and starting to kind of trim away at this idea, this concept, to finally, hopefully, start moving forward towards, truth, for whatever that might end up meaning. I mean, who knows in a field like this?
But is it possible that there's been too much damage done? The public image of ufology is, they're a bunch of wingnuts. The media pays no attention to UFO reports anymore. Like it seems as if it's a dead issue. And then you've got the same old people out there flogging the same thing. Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, and the list goes on and on and on.
I think that one thing that's really great about the internet, especially, and all of this new media that's coming out, right? So I started this journey with podcasts, right? That's kind of where I started all this stuff that got me involved in MUFON in the first place. There are, dozens of high quality podcasts on the UFO field, on new cases, on new ideas that are coming out, and more start every single day. The role, or I think the thing that MUFON has not been able to do in the past that I hope we can start doing better, is bringing in these new voices. Because, you're completely right. I mean, how many times can we ask about Roswell?
Exactly.
Right? Before people stop, turn off the TV, turn off the radio. So there are new ideas. There are new concepts that are coming out that are very interesting. It's just a matter of really putting that into a way that, the old guard can kind of accept it, but also that we can put out a strong face to the public to say, look, I make no apologies for, or rather, I try to take no, I'm under no illusions about the status of the UFO field or how it's occurred over time, right? In my opinion, there really has not been a very concerted, serious scientific analysis of the UFO field, but outside of a couple of specific
All
researchers.
right, stand by.
So,
We've got to take a commercial break. Exo Nation, Chris Cogswell is our special guest this hour. His website is themadscientistpodcast.com, and Chris and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. And welcome back, everyone. My guest this hour is Chris Cogswell. His website is themadscientistpodcast.com. Chris, you know, we're talking about ufology, and it seems that there are no big cases anymore. That the big cases, the Kenneth Arnold case, the Roswell case, the Travis Walton abduction, Betty Barney Hill, these type of cases just don't exist anymore. How come?
I think there's a couple of things that go into making a big case. I think that there is frankly, there's the drama of the case itself, right? There's the reaction of the local community. There's, national news getting involved. There's the military getting involved. All of these things. That doesn't really happen that much anymore, right? I think for the most part, UFO cases are sort of, they're interesting to the public, but I don't know necessarily that it's given the same kind of spooky kind of factor that it was in the past. On top of that, too, I think that just these cases that you're mentioning were these were fundamental to the field, right? They were kind of groundbreaking. And so there are ideas, there are concepts, there are cases sort of like that I would point to. I mean, the Skinwalker Ranch case would be one that I think is kind of foundational for a new way of thinking about UFOs. But, for the most part, I would say that I think it's because, if you do something, if you're the first person to do something, you're going to be the most famous for it, right? So.
Well, being a former police officer that worked with criminologists in Canada, the United States, and around the world, we used to share information to crack cases. We didn't hoard the information like the UFO community does. And I have never understood why the community thinks that they need to hold all the information so close to their heart unless there's ego involved. And if there's ego involved, nothing will ever get accomplished.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's actually been one of my big, I guess I would say my big pet peeves, I think, is that, for a field that is supposedly, always worried about government involvement and military hiding secrets and whatever, we sure do keep a lot of secrets ourselves, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting that way.
It is. And, I received a press release from some radio or podcast that was going to invade Area 51. Like, give your head a shake, you bunch of morons.
Maybe invade the gas station nearest Area 51. But yeah, that's ridiculous. So one thing that I am trying to be, so I would say that is something that we hear at MUFON a lot. That's something that I heard a lot when I first joined, was people saying, the info comes in and then it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
That is, I think, in many cases, I think that is actually a very valid complaint. What we're trying to do now, but let me say that the reason that is usually the case, or at least has been the case, is that MUFON is collecting data on people, on individuals,
Sure.
right? I mean, these are people that are coming to us with their cases. They are in many instances embarrassed or don't want to become known publicly. And so the question that's kind of tricky becomes, well, how much information can you give to the public without it becoming clear who this person is, right? So, I mean, if you're in a small town in, the middle of America or something, and I say, okay, well, a sighting occurred at this zip code at this time, and, the person is a steel worker or something, whatever, there might only be 300 steel workers in that town that match that kind of general time and description, right? It's not going to be super difficult to find that person's info out.
No, I understand that, but the data could be collected, stored, and released in such a way that this information is only given to people who deserve to have it, not John Q. Public.
Yes, and so that is actually something that so MUFON has always been open to that, but I think it hasn't ever really been easy because of the way that our database was stored. We are now basically creating a tool that will let us export that data, basically cleaned up of any personally identifying information, so that if you are a researcher interested in this field, we are happy to share the data with you. So, that should no longer be a concern, I would say. Again, we want to ensure that we are, checking who is getting the data, that they're going to use it for a good reason and all of that kind of stuff. But ultimately, MUFON is providing a public service, or at least that's what I think we should be doing. So, if you're a researcher and you want access to these cases, well, I don't see the harm in having, instead of just one team doing this kind of work, why not have hundreds, right? That seems like a much better way to have a vibrant research community.
Sure, it makes a lot of sense. If you throw enough crap on the wall, some of it's going to stick. But MUFON has been going through a lot of turmoil lately.
Yes.
And I think the public perception of MUFON, as well as other members within the paranormal community and UFO community, are not looking at MUFON as that star in the sky when it comes to ufology. Like, I can give you an example. One of the former directors, I don't know if he's still part of it, was saying some rather crude racial remarks.
Yeah, that is something that can't be tolerated, right? I mean, that was a hugely disappointing thing, when it occurred, but also, it's still something that I think we need to be better at addressing, I would say. So obviously I think that there are these challenges and there are big issues that MUFON has to overcome. And I think that MUFON has lost a lot of public trust. And forget public trust. I think has lost the trust of other researchers in many ways.
Right.
I hope that I can be some small part of rebuilding that trust. And also, I think that with something, the things have to go wrong before you can really make a radical change to turn them correct, right? To kind of steer the boat in the right direction, I would say. And so I think that in many ways, this is sort of these, as MUFON grows, as the UFO community becomes better at doing investigations on their own, and also gets more, just has larger memberships and, larger, I would say, analysis of it done even by the general public. I think that we're going to find issues like this that come up, and I think that we need to address them as they come up correctly and quickly. Mm-hmm. But also I think that there has to be I think, though, that we can do a lot of good with this process of change. You know what I'm saying? I think that as these changes occur and as the methods get better, I think that we can start to gain that trust back. And frankly, I mean, I'm not sure that it had MUFON not had these negative things occur, in the past, say 5 years, 10 years, I'm not sure that they would be bringing on such young and, well, relatively young anyways, but, such new faces to the field with a lot of different ideas, such as myself.
Is it possible MUFON's time has come and should be disbanded?
I think that the challenge. So, I don't think that MUFON's time has come. I mean, if I did, that would be a bad move for my resume. Mm-hmm. But I think that maybe MUFON has to change. I think that things have to change, right? So MUFON has for a very long time operated as a very loose organization, right? There is a central office and a central board of directors and teams that do this internal research and things. But for the most part, MUFON operates as a number of local chapters that get together, mm-hmm. right? So the chapter for Virginia is a lot different than the chapter for Florida, than for New York, than for Ontario, right? So all these chapters have their own flavor, have their own leadership, have their own ideas and agendas and things.
And all these chapters pay their own fares. They pay everything out of their own pockets, plus their memberships.
Yes. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And so the challenge, I think, or one of the things that we're trying to bring to MUFON is, well, we first off have to start giving something back to these people who are being, who have been with us for so long. Right. We have to, as a centralized organization, do something that at least, proves our worth as a centralized organization at all. And also, I think we need to be better about ensuring the sort of, I don't know if quality control is the right word, but almost we need to be better about directing this large ship into one direction.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of loose ends with MUFON. And you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour, but we'll be back after the news. X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Chris Cogswell. His website is themadscientistpodcast.com. And Chris and I will be back on the other side as we continue talking about UFOs and much more this hour here in the X Zone. Don't forget, you can always check out the X Chronicles newspaper with our compliments at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. And don't forget the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV, 724, 365.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common: They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, and Chris Cogswell is my special guest this hour. His website is themadscientistpodcast.com. You know, we were talking about the oldies but goldies, Stanton Friedman and, Travis Walton. They're still doing the tours. Betty Barney Hill. Even former Defense Minister Paul Hellyer is now getting into the UFO swing of things because he can't get anything else to do. Here in Canada, the government has basically said, forget it. It's not worth us spending a dime down. If you have any UFO reports, just contact Chris Rutowski at the University of Manitoba. So what does that tell you when the governments of a major country like Canada says, hey, listen, we don't have time, we don't have money, we don't even see the need for a department to get involved with UFOs. And then you've got Nick Pope, who is on every show that I think TLN has got going. And, still nothing that even resembles credibility when it comes to the UFO field. And I can't understand where Stanton Friedman, who's a nuclear physicist, I understand that, and I appreciate and respect his degrees, but he's never seen a UFO. So I find this very all confusing.
Well, so I have never seen. I've never seen an electron.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I still study them. I still use them for science. I still learned for 20 years about them, right? In some ways, I would argue that in many ways, though, this is part of the problem that we need to address in the UFO field is the reliance on this idea that the UFO concept has to boil down to, us pulling, a ship out of the sky or a body out of a craft or something, right? There is worth in the study of this phenomena outside of simple, aviation or space propulsion or military or whatever, even though those might be very fascinating for people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one question that comes up often that is very, very interesting in my mind is, what are the population dynamics of abductees or people who claim to have been abducted, right? What is it that makes someone believe in UFOs despite the fact that they've never seen one before, right? Are there any clear differences between observations of known objects, so for instance, planes in the sky or what have you, versus these unknown objects, right? All of these questions are interesting and valid, and none of them have really been touched by serious science. I mean, and another argument that I would make, I guess, to your first point is, governments have a very focused view of what they believe to be useful for them to spend their money on, or at least, they probably should have a focused view on what to spend their money on. All academic research, I can't speak for Canada, but I know that this is true in the United States. All academic research is partially funded by the government, but also very highly funded through grants that are given by the government so that the government does not have to spend its own money, quote unquote,
right,
to do this research, right? So, and again, I would argue that in many ways, the UFO field has never been scientific, has never really had serious science put its lens towards what these events are, what these ideas could be.
Let me ask you this simple question: why not?
I think because, frankly, that is the $1 million question,
yeah,
right? I mean, you will have some who would say that it's because vast conspiracies and whatever, and I don't buy in any of that.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, but there is something to be said about this idea that, it takes science a long time to get its boots in gear to change ideas. I mean, the founders, the fathers of quantum mechanics only really had any kind of success in bringing about that idea to the forefront in their 50s. Mm-hmm. Right? These were experiments and ideas that they had written about in papers during their theses, right? When they were in their mid to late 20s. It takes science, it takes any bureaucracy a very long time to change. And so I think that is also true, that is especially true of something that is considered a fringe science, right? I mean, let's take, for example, ghost hunting. Right now, this is a bad example. I don't think ghost hunting and the search for UFOs, they're similar in some ways, but I don't think, there's a lot of weirdness there between these two realms. But if you look at the realm of ghost hunting, mm-hmm, what has changed over time is that the way that we look for ghosts has gone from us looking for full-bodied apparitions that have voices and seem to have conscious will to today simply looking for heat signatures or electrons or disturbances in magnetic fields, right? That supernatural idea, that magical thought, has reduced itself all the way from something truly outside the realm of the natural to being something easily measurable with a electromagnetic field, device.
But you've got a lot of people who are using equipment who don't know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They go online, they buy all this equipment. They call themselves Ghostbusters or investigators. They don't have a clue what it takes to do an investigation. They're hobbyists. They are just basic hobbyists. They go online. The whole thing. It reminds me, the paranormal investigation in any aspect reminds me of the old. In the 70s, when everybody would put a CB radio in their car, they'd have all these crazy handles. And then they would go down to a coffee shop, park beside each other, and talk to each other on the radio.
Right. Just because you have a CB radio does not make you a radio engineer.
Exactly.
Right. Well, and I would argue the same thing is true of the UFO field. I mean, just because you have a Geiger counter and a pair of binoculars and a notebook doesn't mean that you are going to be doing this investigation in an interesting way, and I mean, or in a scientifically valid way. And so I think part of the challenge for MUFON as an organization is ensuring that the data that we do collect is collected in the best way possible, but then also analyzed scientifically. But also, I would say that the move towards this being a more serious investigation has in some ways started in these interesting ways with, the To the Stars Academy, or, Bigelow Aerospace, or these other, really those are the big ones, right? But then we also have Luis Elizondo's program that was going through the United States government. There are, the thing with this that's so interesting is we always get these little tantalizing hints that we're just on the cusp of something big. But for me, I think that the way that we put this to academic researchers, the way we put this to the scientific community is, well, we've been looking at this completely with a small, a set of blinders on. We've been looking at one small spot of this bigger problem. What kind of interesting anthropological data can we get from this idea of UFO contact? What sort of interesting concepts can we get through, the arts, just simple science fiction writing? What kind of interesting historical trends or, sociological trends or philosophical concepts can we get out of the study of these areas of fringe science? I think there's a lot of very, very interesting and also, I think, very fruitful, honest, serious research that can be done in this field that has nothing to do or very little to do with the reality of, craft in the sky.
I agree with you. It is very interesting. But what happens at the end of the day? All this hard work is for nothing because there are no UFOs.
The way that I look at this is sort of the way that I think a lot of my fellow colleagues that I've talked to about this kind of look at these interesting things, which is there has never been there's never been a Starship Enterprise, right? Star Trek didn't really occur. That was never a reality in any way. But there have been more scientists who started their careers because of Star Trek and Star Wars and the X-Files and all these other shows, because it bred in them a excitement, a fire for investigation and the unknown in the sciences. So I would say that if the study of UFOs can at least get people interested in science, and so then we can potentially use it as a way to teach scientific thinking and the history of science and the philosophy of science by talking about these kind of fringe concepts, then it isn't all this hard work for nothing. It is all this hard work, having fun and investigating something very interesting while doing a public service. But even if that public service isn't to find the reality of UFOs.
But how can you take it seriously and have fun at the same time?
I think that if you – I would argue that you should always be having fun. Right? Or you should always at least be having something of a good time. Maybe a good time is the wrong word. I think that we can make this exciting for the public, but also still do good research. Maybe that's a better way of saying it.
Don't you think the public has enough on their plate already?
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Chris Cogswell is our special guest this hour. www.themadscientistpodcast.com. Chris, something that strikes me very confusing. With all the abilities of different governments to hack every other government and then WikiLeaks to hack in everybody's government, would it not be advantageous for an unfriendly government of the USA to dig into a databank, a government databank, and find the truth about UFOs, and if they do exist, expose that fact to the public, and that at that time that would totally discredit the government. And why hasn't anything like that happened?
So first off, I'm not sure that they need the release of UFO information to discredit the United States government at the moment, but or just generally, I think there's been enough problems with the U.S. government that there's all kinds of questions and whatever. If you look at public polling about confidence in the United States government, it's already comically low, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if there's much more that they could do in terms of, but I get the point of what you're saying. Frankly, I don't think the U.S. government knows much more about UFOs than the public does.
I agree.
I think that as the song in this cut here so eloquently put it, I think that I think that there is a lot more there's a lot more real human evil that occurs with this kind of stuff that we don't need aliens as a boogeyman or something, right? I think there's enough real issues that the government's worrying about generally that I doubt very much that they spend any more time than they potentially did during the Cold War or right after World War II or something. In terms of so that's I think why that hasn't happened, is I think that there probably isn't anything really there for them to hack into. Now, in terms of what I think let me say, so I don't believe in any of this large conspiracy stuff generally.
Yeah.
I would say that it is likely that the government, just like is true with, I would say, most of the history of public research into this kind of fringe stuff, we've kind of been doing it in an ineffective way. At worst, or at best rather, and at worst, we've actively gone against ourselves by infighting. So yeah, I would say that it's probably because that evidence isn't there within the government.
So what do you think should be done when it comes to going forward in ufology?
I think that we need to start, frankly, we need to stop being afraid to say that is a ridiculous idea. We need to stop being afraid of critiquing ourselves and critiquing other people in the field and pulling apart their theories and getting rid of bad theories, right? I mean, if science operated the way that ufology has operated, we'd still be talking about, phlogiston and, cutting off the legs of cutting off the legs of people to see if their kids grow with one leg, right? I mean, we'd be doing all these ridiculous old theory things. So I would say that we really have to start we have to start being our own harshest critics, because when someone comes out and says something ridiculous, it is used against all of us who are trying to do legitimate work. And I mean, and I think too, there is a very real human element to this. I mean, it's easy to talk about, reptiles and governments and whatever, right? Like, it's easy to talk about that stuff and make fun of it. It's much harder to discount the story of someone who's, telling you that they legitimately believe they've been taken and attacked or harmed in some way, right? I mean, regardless of the truth of alien contact, something is compelling these people to come forward, and getting to the bottom of that and treating them with dignity and respect, I think, is worthy of everyone's concern, regardless of, again, if you think UFOs are real or not.
But how many of these people who come forward with these ridiculous statements, including David Icke and his reptilian theory, do it for no other reason than to get listeners, to get likes, and to get publicity, and to get invited to all the different exhibitions and seminars?
Well, and that's the problem, is that they're getting, bad behavior keeps working for them, right? I mean, every time some fool says that they've been to Mars or something, we give them a talk show, right? We give them, give them a book deal. We need to stop and, again, be our own harshest critics and stop inviting these ideas in. Stop talking about these discredited theories. I'll give you an example. My one of the first kind of expos, the first one of these events that I went to, I saw a talk on a subject involving archaeology that has been handily discredited over and over again. Every time it rears its ugly head, it is discredited. Right. And yet a new person was writing a new book on it and giving a talk on it. We have a responsibility as the central location for this information that people come to get this information, to protect our members from con men and snake oil salesmen and all of that stuff. And we also have a responsibility, I think, if we really want to get to the bottom of this, to start putting out the best information available.
How are the old guard going to take this new concept?
It's funny. I think that for the most part, so everyone that I've talked to about this notion or these ideas have been positive. They've just been, okay, we'll be cautious, right? Just don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't get burnt out, all that stuff. I would say that, frankly, if the proof, as one of my favorite professors would always say, the proof is in the pudding, right? If they want to come and show their data, show their evidence, and try to convince people that their evidence is better than our evidence, then awesome. That's great. That is exactly what a scientific process should do. But if your evidence is simply hearsay, or your evidence is, a cockamamie story about something that can't be proven or verified in any way, then it is just that. It is just a story, right? And so, again, the truth doesn't care what you think about it. The truth doesn't care how you feel. It is the truth regardless. So we need to start being a bastion for the truth, as opposed to a bastion for everyone to come give their fanciful stories.
I appreciate what you're saying, but when you've got a lot of the old guard who are embedded in the old mentality that if the if things change too much and they're discredited, then they're going to look pretty damn stupid.
Okay, first off, not to ruffle too many feathers, I think that a lot of the people that will be discredited already look kind of stupid.
I agree.
Right? I mean, it's too late. That ship is sailed.
But it is for young folk and for the new people that are coming into ufology. But to the older crowd, the generation that started ufology in the 70s and 80s, who started because of the X-Files, because of Star Trek, who did not follow the scientific route to becoming scientists and archaeologists and all the people who are now contributing thanks to the shows that were on TV. They're going to be crushed.
Well, you know what? I mean, I always like to point to the book by Thomas Kuhn on scientific revolutions, right? He talks about how the structure of scientific revolutions, he talks about how the old guard always, regardless of the field, all that stuff, the old guard always has a moment of, resistance. There's always a resistance moment before the big change occurs. And then it happens and this field can move forward, right?
Hey, listen, I hate to do this, but we've run out of time. I'd love to have you come back on the show, Chris. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success, and looking forward to hearing more about you over the years to come. Take care of yourself, Chris.
Thanks very much.
Right. Chris Cogswell has been our guest. Exo Nation, the MadScientistPodcast.com. I'll be back after this news break. Don't go away.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.